Swing, and I am working for the Bureau of Student Wellness at the New Hampshire Department of Education. Today's video is going to be about Maslow's basic needs, hierarchy of needs, and Bloom's taxonomy. That might sound like a foreign language, and I will explain it in a little more detail here in a moment. We're going to let people sign on. If you haven't followed us already on Facebook, make sure you do. We're at NH Student Wellness. We also have a YouTube channel, NH Student Wellness. We're on Twitter at NH Schools. And of course, we have our remote learning website, www.nhlearnsremotely.com. Couple of other announcements this afternoon. We'll be back here with our live speaker series. Today we have Counselor Amy Jo Muscat and Jennifer Tveter from the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and they're going to be here to talk to us about how educators can keep students safe during remote learning. I know that's something that a lot of us have been thinking about, so it will be great to hear from them this afternoon, so we hope you tune into that live at 3. So let's get into today's topic, which is putting Maslow before Bloom. So my name is Catherine Leswing, like I mentioned. I work for the Bureau of Student Wellness at the New Hampshire Department of Education. The goal of our sessions today and every day, is to make a space for parents, caretakers, educators to come and connect while we are all engaged in remote learning, and to learn from each other, share resources. So to that note, if you would like to put comments or questions in the comments box, please feel free. So our chat today is called Students Must Maslow Before They Bloom. Like I mentioned earlier, if you haven't taken a psych course or an education course recently, that might sound like German. So what are we talking about? When we talk about Maslow, we're talking about Abraham Maslow. He was an American psychologist who was best known for his theory of psychological health that made a hierarchy of fundamental needs. The up through higher order needs, reaching self-actualization all the way at the tippy top. I actually made a little visual for today's talk because I think I'm a visual learner and I find it's easier to sort of see things. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I hope you can see the whole thing on my screen. And down here we see there's physiological at the bottom, right? So that's like your really basic needs, water, food, sleep. And I'm going to get into these a little deeper in a moment. But this is this is Maslow's basic idea of his hierarchy of needs. He states essentially that individuals' most basic needs, the ones at the bottom, need to be met before we can achieve the higher level needs up at the top, self-actualization. So this is where Bloom comes in. Benjamin Bloom created a hierarchy model, excuse me, as well, and his is known as Bloom's taxonomy. If you're an educator, surely you've heard of Bloom. And he classifies not so much psychological needs, but a hierarchy for educational learning objectives. And so yes, I made another model. His hierarchy looks something like this. And his hierarchy starts with learning objectives in their most basic and increasing in difficulty up the pyramid there. So when we talk about Maslow before Bloom, what we're saying is really if folks don't have these basic needs of Maslow taken care of, it's going to be really hard for them to get up here with Bloom and to do some of this higher level learning. I don't know about you, but during this time, I've been having a really hard time remembering things. I feel really scatterbrained. And a lot of that is because some of my more basic needs aren't met. Let's see where I am here. Okay, before we get into a few ways to put this into place for remote learning, I did just want to remind folks to use the comments box, and I have put a question in there for you right now. If you're an educator, which of Maslow's needs do you think you would best focus on, or do you most need to focus on with your students to get them ready to learn? So let's jump into Maslow's first need. Remember the one at the bottom of the pyramid there. I'm probably going to show you this every time, which is physiological well-being. So this is food, water, warmth, sleep. Hopefully, in an ideal world, we all have these basic needs met. But we know that this is not always the case, and especially with loss of employment and other hardships that are coming out of the pandemic, we can imagine that some students are experiencing insecurity with having their physiological needs met. What can you do as a parent or as an educator who's witnessing this? So a few things. You can make sure that your students are eating regularly. Sometimes we're all in the house. It's easy to make it a free-for-all, but making sure they're getting nutritious meals will make sure that they're getting that need met. Staying hydrated. Younger kids sometimes forget to even drink water. It seems basic, but making sure students are getting enough water and getting enough sleep. That's another big one. Now, if hardship has fallen on your family and there's been unemployment recently, or food insecurity, or paying utilities is hard, that's really understandable, and a lot of places are offering extra support. So the New Hampshire Food Bank has been ramping up services during this time. I really encourage you to check out their website. It's nhfoodbank.org if you are in need of food assistance. Also, if you go to your town's homepage, they usually have a list of food pantries listed on the town's homepage as well. And then check in with your utility companies. Many of them are offering some assistance during this hard time. So once we've gotten physiological needs dealt with, next is safety. What do we mean by safety? Safety can be access to resources, having employment, having good health and access to health care, having a safe family environment. So as families, we can maintain routines, we can keep workspaces clutter-free, we can do what we can to really ensure that our home feels like a safe and comfortable learning environment as well as a place to live now. Educators can work to check in with students and to definitely bring it to attention and report it if there is a safety concern. Now, I think it's interesting that employment is under the category of safety, because that really is security for us, right? When we don't have employment, we feel insecure and we feel unsafe. So if there has been a job loss right now, it's important to reassure students in a realistic way that things are going to be okay and that there's a lot of assistance out there. In New Hampshire, you can check out employment services at nhes.nh.gov to enroll in unemployment. They have been experiencing a high demand, as you might imagine, and they actually have days to check in with them that are by the first letter of your last name. So check and see which day it is that you can apply and talk to a customer service person. All right. 3, love and belonging. So that's middle of the pyramid here is love and belonging. What can you do as a parent to ensure that there's love and belonging? I imagine a lot of us already know sort of what these things are, but to reinforce them during this time of uncertainty, we can have family meals together. One of the big things is allowing students to socialize with friends through technology. This is really important, and we see a lot of students struggling with this disconnection. So maybe setting a set time each week or even each day where students get to check in and actually see their friends and maybe even play games with them. You can also discuss characteristics of a healthy relationship. What do healthy relationships look like for students? And these are things that we sometimes need to teach expressly with kids. They don't just necessarily know what that looks like, but these are teachable skills. Now we're getting into some of the more internalized needs. The next one is esteem. So this is respect, recognition, self-esteem, self-worth. So we can encourage students to try new things. We can give them positive reinforcement based on their behavior or actions. So I'm thinking, for example, thank you, Johnny, for cleaning up your dishes. I really noticed that you're working to keep our space clean for our family. Doing that when it's a positive behavior rather than can't you please clean up your dishes, but rewarding that positive behavior when you see it keeps it a more warm and welcoming environment and also encourages that good behavior. And try just avoid negative comments about character. So if you see that Johnny hasn't cleaned up his dishes, again, try not to use language like you're always a messy person, and try to say something like, I noticed that you can occasionally leave a mess. That might not even be the best way to do it, but I feel that sometimes you forget to leave your dishes, and that makes a messy environment for the family. By making it not about the character and about the action, it changes the dynamic. It leaves Johnny feeling less defensive, and it builds up his esteem to know that, oh, well, I can engage in actions that are positive and do help my family. It's not about my person. And then that leaves us to the tip of Maslow's pyramid here, which is self-actualization. Now, I think the way I kind of think about it is self-actualization is actually where Bloom's kind of comes in. And we have up at the top of Maslow's pyramid, now students are in a place where they can learn knowledge, they can understand and digest material, they can apply it, they can analyze it. They really can create and become the people that they want to be. But until we've addressed their physiological needs, their safety, their love and belonging, and their self-esteem, it's going to be really hard for students to get to that place where they feel like, yeah, I can remember things, I can apply myself in school. So that's why we're really encouraging folks to prioritize meeting those basic needs, meeting the ones that seem a little tougher to meet right now, like safety, if there has been a job loss, but making sure that we're reaching out for resources to help us get through. Love and belonging, connecting with people, and reminding students that they're not alone will all be really helpful. And it's especially important for educators to remember this as well. I know it's frustrating to not be able to tackle Bloom's taxonomy right now as aggressively as we would if we were in school, but making sure that we get students to a place where they can learn is really important. So I hope some of these tips may have been useful for you. Remember, I've heard the term or the phrase used, under stress, we regress. And I think that that's a useful thing to remember when we just think in our everyday lives about Maslow. That if I'm stressed in any way, physiological needs, emotional needs, I'm not going to be able to tackle that learning. So if we help students to keep steady and meet their needs through remote learning, they will be ready to thrive and be resilient and learn when they are back in the school building. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, be sure to like us on our social media channels, and we will be back here again today at 3 for a very engaging session for you. So thanks again for looking or watching, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.